welcome back to Unlocking Her Code podcast. Thank you for joining us on this journey of self-discovery, growth, and transformation through powerful stories and empowering conversations. This is episode 4, Unlocking the Wounded Narcissist. This is Stevie. Hi, Lou.
Hi, Stevie. That title, though, dang.
Right? It's a powerful one.
I know. And it's only because, tell me, we don't see the word narcissist like everywhere, or people being titled the narcissist, or just being like, he totally, he just gaslights you, or she just gaslights you, and she's a narcissist, he's a narcissist, It's everywhere.
Everywhere. And that's why even before we go into the definition, I want to share this quote. And this is the quote of the episode. What you see in others is always a reflection of a part of you that is sitting in denial and just requires acceptance.
Yeah. Swallow that one, huh?
I know. Yeah. This is going to be a total different perspective for a lot of our listeners of the word narcissist. We're not coming in with your regular narcissist conversation. We're going to go deep and we're going to challenge all those belief systems, all those old stories behind this word.
Yeah.
And that's like really our intention here, to just look at this from a total different perspective.
Yep. So it's going to trigger some for sure who hear the word and just get so defensive about it. But man, did I learn just like trying to prepare for this one. And have I been learning a lot about, because who hasn't used the word? And I myself have used the word to describe people, to describe others, but never myself.
Which is what we're going to look at, right? Because that's a lot of the main intention on this podcast, is to look at ourselves.
Yep.
Self-discovery, self-awareness. So I think it's a perfect topic to dive into. And even to begin, we did look up the regular definition that's on the dictionary. And the definition on the dictionary is that a narcissist is an individual showing symptoms of or affected by narcissism, such as an extreme self-centered person who has an exaggerated sense of self-importance, or a person who is overly concerned with his or her physical appearance.
That's crazy. Because that's, it's part of what I have my own. Before I started doing the self-awareness, before I started learning, and I think my transformation, I had my own definition of what a narcissist is. And it does have those traits, right, that you just mentioned. But I feel like for me, a narcissist is someone who is entitled, and just feeling like they're always right, and they're right. Like there's no other way. Someone who's definitely manipulative and controlling, and uses their emotions to control you or control others. And also they can be charming, but they're using it for their own, to get what they want, right? At the end of it, they have an agenda for why they're acting the way they're acting, right? It's never genuine. So definitely manipulative and controlling. Someone that needs admiration, constantly craves attention, and seeks validation from the exterior, right? Someone who does not take any feedback, who overreacts when getting feedback, is defensive, gets hurt, gets angry easily, and blames others for everything else. And someone who cannot admit being wrong. They do not apologize for their behavior, but they'll justify it always. That's a narcissist to me, right? That was like the meaning of a narcissist. Like, you looked for those traits in people, and you're like, boom, labeled a narcissist. That's it. I'm done with you.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like now more than ever, that word is being used and it's just left and right. I mean, there's so many topics topics online or quotes online or stuff like that around this word. I personally don't like this word. I never liked it. I never even I try not to use it. Like, it's just not a word that I liked. I obviously now I see things from a different perspective, but before seeing this new perspective of a narcissist, I used to believe that a narcissist was just like a bad person. You know, it wasn't like a healthy person, or I just had that idea. I didn't go much deeper into it. It's just if I seen a person acting bad or out of control or just doing things that were not the nicest, I would just think, oh, that person is a narcissist. Just very, basic stuff that I had.
Yeah.
Now, as I've learned about the narcissist journey, and I have a different definition for it now, but we can go into that a little bit later as we're deeper into the conversation. But why this topic? Why do you think we felt called to sharing this?
I think, as it's part of the healing process. I feel it's as you're healing and you have to obviously open up to your traumas and your wounds, right? And you have to be vulnerable. But at the same time, a lot of people don't want to open up they don't want to open up the traumas. They don't want to go back and revisit, and they don't want to sit in their feelings. And then when you're in that moment, it's very easy to point a finger and say it was somebody else's doing, or, the reason why you're hurt is because of, whatever happened to you. And so it's kind of like, when you really think about it, is you can sit here and be blaming someone who you consider to be a narcissist for your pain, right? For what you had gone through in your traumas. But then at the same time, are we a little bit narcissistic for always pointing fingers and saying it's somebody else's fault and not mine, So it's kind of one of those things where I feel like our conversations always lead to that. And it's not so much, and there's so many things that can go into a trait of a narcissist. But then there's so many reasons of, like, we talked about, no one ever really wants to understand them. They just want to label. I just want to label you one and then be done with you and wash my hands and say, boom, that guy's a narcissist. That's it. There's no, not that you agree with what they're doing, but understand where they're coming from. Yeah. And I feel like when you're in a moment, in a time in your life where you want to heal and really be at peace, you cannot do that if you're constantly in the blame, in that
blaming others.
Yeah, blaming others.
Yeah.
How do you heal when you just can't be at peace with, or try and understand it? So there's a lot of reasons why this topic, but I just feel like it always kind of brings it back to that.
Definitely, I feel like the journey always points back to us. Yeah, to like look at ourselves. Yeah. And I feel like obviously this topic, like we said, this word is being used in so many different ways. So let's just go deeper. Of course, with this episode, we're not condoning anyone to stay in any abusive relationship at all. This is just for educational purposes so that you learn a different perspective of this word and what we ourselves have gone through, for sure. And why do you think this word is being used like nothing? Like, I feel like I see this word come up so much on social media right now, and people using it left and right, like we said at the beginning. And there's more and more people being labeled narcissists now more than ever.
Right? I see it everywhere. Like how to spot a narcissist, how to know you're married to a narcissist, how to know if your ex was a narcissist, how to avoid them, how to treat them, how to whatever, So, okay, you labeled one a narcissist. Okay, now what? So now what? You're going to move on to the next one. You're going to find some trait, because let me tell you, I can almost assure you that every single person is a narcissist. Every single person. Now that when you really open up to understand him, to understand every single aspect and how it got there, you're going to say, holy shit, me, myself, and I have had that one of those traits, right? So, but I feel it's so easy to just label one and move on, right? Because, I mean, why not?
Yeah.
You know?
It's the easiest way out.
Right.
A lot of the times, right? That's why I wanted to share my own definition of what a narcissist is. A narcissist is a part within us all. I truly believe that we all carry that part within us. Of course, some people have it more activated than others, but I believe we all have the potential of having this part. And the level of the intensity of the narcissist, it's going to depend on case by case, right? On the level of trauma that person has experienced, on like what they have endured, what level of pain they've endured, right? But so when I look at the narcissist, I don't see the narcissist as only one certain type of individual in the world. I truly believe that if you spot a narcissist, you're spotting that narcissist because you know that trait very well yourself. And we all have the potential of being a narcissist. That we want to agree with that, or that we want to acknowledge and accept it, that's a whole total different story, right? But if when we look at the narcissist, we'd like to open the perspective to the audience looking at this as a part that resides within every human that is on earth at this time. I mean, it's just like I said, it could either be alive, very loud, quiet, suppressed. It depends on every single person.
Oh yeah, I believe that. Now I definitely believe it.
And how does one arrive to having a very active narcissist personality, right? Because now that we know, okay, well, we all have the potential of carrying that part, but how come there's certain people that have it more active than others, right?
Yeah, I think one of those things that I started to understand, and you know, it was for me, right? And I'll mention it. I felt like at some point, and even just recently, I feel like at some point I'm looking at my husband and saying like, you're such a fucking narcissist. Like, oh my God, I can't believe I married a narcissist, you know? There's moments, right, when I'm catching myself saying that. And I've even said it to him and he's like, I don't even know what that means. He's like, stop calling me something I don't know what it means. And I'm like, how could you not know what it means? It's everywhere, you know? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And so then, and why do I feel that? Because of course, you know, like the blaming everybody else because he's upset, or, you know, and so I started saying like, oh my gosh, I'm married to a narcissist. Jesus Christ, I can't believe it. And then I swear, I think I even looked up at one point how to deal with, or what, like how to deal if your husband or spouse is a narcissist. You know, I'm over here trying to figure out like, okay, how am I going to make this work with him, right? But then when I started doing the work and I started really looking within and I started really figuring out, well, I'm not going to lie. First, I started trying to see why he's the narcissist, why him, right? Like, why is he the narcissist? And then kind of putting it like, okay, him. Oh my God, I've also dated a narcissist now that I start thinking about, and that other one was too, you know, oh my God, they're all narcissists, like all of them. So then I started saying, dude, why am I attracted to them? Like, why am I picking them? So, but never did I like turn around and pay attention to myself. So anyways, it was very easy. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It's so easy to blame them and just label them and never look back and turn around or look at ourselves in the mirror and say, what about me? You know? So it was very easy to kind of just say like, okay, yeah, these men are the issues, not me. Then I started to like really learn, right, as to where can it come from, right? And so there's some things that I did notice, like childhood trauma, right? There's, like you mentioned, and we've talked about before in the past, is it can be triggered by an event or the environment you're in. It can be triggered by a relationship you're in, or a job or whatever. It can be triggered from something that took you, that it didn't create the narcissism, the narcissist in you. It just heightened your trait, like it heightened that sense, you know. And so why? Because I feel like, at least from my perspective, I feel like it does come from the childhood, right? Growing up in an environment where your emotional needs were probably rejected, or they're not consistent, you know, having an unemotionally available parent, or an absent parent, or a parent that's overly critical of everything you do, or a parent that one thing that I did learn was maybe a parent that praised their child excessively praised their child for absolutely everything that they did. And so now the child grows up and needs attention, needs this approval all the time, this entitlement, this sense of I need validation because I always had it from my mom or my dad. And sometimes, why does the parent do that? That's a different story. The parent is probably trying to over for something that they lacked, you know. So it could be parental influence. Like you could have had a parent that was a narcissist, so then you learned the traits, and then you just kind of adopted them. Definitely emotional neglect, or abuse. And abuse could be anything, and you know, any type of abuse, or inconsistent caregiving, where you didn't have a household that was consistent, or you were passed around, like from this house to that house, and now you're being taken here, now you're being taken there, or you know, now it's your mom taking care of you, but now it's your dad, and it's two different like parental, you know, ways that they raised you. And all these things, you know, can create these traits because they leave you feeling like you always needed something. Like, you know, if you were emotional neglected, then, or physical abuse, it was like you needed to create this self-image of yourself that would keep you from feeling vulnerable, that will keep you from feeling alone, that would keep you from like you know, that would push you to seek that validation, or just so many things that can tie into all these feelings. And then when I started to see like, oh my gosh, being a narcissist is just like a mask, like a layer, because you've always give me images like of how do I need to like envision it, and it was like a shield or a layer. Like narcissist traits come up to protect you from feeling all this damage that you had from a child. Like, so now what it does, it comes in and it says, we're going to wear this mask of you being extremely you seeking attention, and you're loud, and you're, you know, and it looks like you are really confident, but this is just to protect you because we don't believe in ourselves. We have low self-esteem. We don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want people to see that we're broken inside. So we're going to make it look like we're the shits, and we don't need anybody. But, you know, like, look at me, like, I'm looking for attention. I don't need you. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't need like, I have no empathy for you. Like, just, it seems like they're just there for themselves, but it's just like a shield that is kind of covering like a broken child inside.
Yeah.
And when I thought of that, I was like, oh my God, I yes, thank you, narcissist. Narcissism for protecting me, you know?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely, every point you hit is on point, you know. It's definitely born out of survival.
Yeah.
Out of a part that when we were children was left to be vulnerable and was humiliated, was abused, was bullied or severely criticized. You know, it depends on the level of trauma or incidents that you went through. and it's how it's going to show up in the level of narcissism that is within every person, right? I feel like definitely for me and my journey, this part was very activated at one point, more than it is now, because I mean, I think the levels just kind of either are heightened or just, in a lower scale. It's there, but you're aware that it's there. And I definitely feel like these tendencies for me were born directly from abuse, from childhood abuse, from tremendous amount of just criticism from my parents, especially from my mother. So like picking up those tendencies from directly from her.
Yeah.
And now as an adult, I was just thinking that's the way I had to show up in the world before I was even aware. I just thought it was normal.
That's what. But do you feel like your mom was probably like the first narcissist that you came? And with all respect, like, because I do feel like I learned from my mom was probably like the first narcissist in my life. Like if I go back and look at those traits and how it affected me. But in all respect, right? We love our moms and everything, and I love my mom, but she's that way for a reason, right? Now I understand that about her. For a long time I didn't.
Yeah. They only took us as far as they could, right? With the tools that they had. I mean, that's the way I see it, right? Obviously, I've had to travel a very difficult journey to be able to arrive at this point where I now understand my parents and my mother, but definitely came from that part where I developed this very heightened narcissist within me that just wanted to protect my inner child fiercely. This part, when it's heightened, this part truly believes that it needs to protect you to keep you alive. It almost has the permission to do anything it needs to do just to keep your inner child safe. And imagine what it's willing to do to keep that part of ourselves safe, right? So it's just like acknowledging that and understanding that narcissism is not a label that certain people have and others don't have, and that is born just because the person was born defective, or
they're just an asshole.
It really isn't. If you sit down and understand why this was developed, you will always understand that it was developed and heightened because of the pain, because of the trauma, because of the suffering that inner child was going through at that time. And when, for me specifically, when I understood that this part was developed to protect a vulnerable part of me, one, it made me sad because I had to really look at that information from a different point of view, because I was like, first I went through like how sad is it that I had to develop a narcissist within me to protect my inner child. Like, what was I going through that I had to heighten this to protect her, right? So and then I had to visit those areas, and it was really painful because I had to see like what my inner child felt, what she went through, how all the abuse, all the self-criticism, everything. I really had to get to dive deep into those areas. And first my first reaction when I discovered this was anger. I was angry at my parents because in that point of my life, I believed it's their fault. It's their fault. I have these tendencies, right? But as you go along in the journey and you learn more tools, I learned to have compassion for my parents, for their journey, because if I had a rough childhood, just thinking of what they experienced, the little information I know, is out of a horror story. So that makes you think okay, well, they were only doing the best that they could, right? And it gave me more of a sense of okay, peace, to see the information,
Yeah.
to go from there, right? But you do go through stages where you find the information and you're like angry,
Yeah.
and then you blame, and then because you're trying to understand, right? When you're self-reflecting, you're trying to understand why have I arrived to this place? Why do I have these tendencies that I see and don't like, right?
Yeah, that you see in others and you don't like. And it's very easy to point out in others, you know?
Yeah.
Yep. No, I feel that, you know, I did learn, like, for example, when I started learning about all this and just going back and trying to understand where did it start, and feeling like the first narcissist that came across my life, it would be for me, was my mom. Was her, the way she almost like didn't let us, my mom and my dad, I think, you know, and I think a lot of parents do this, where they say, yeah, well, look at you guys, what you have right now, and when we were young, we didn't have that, we didn't get to do this, we didn't get to do that. Those type of tendencies that came up a lot, kind of as a kid, made you feel bad for what they just gave you, and they want you to feel bad and not fully enjoy it. So you kind of, as a child, you're like, I'm not supposed to enjoy this. It puts like this seed in, like this, it plants a little seed in you, saying like, you're not supposed to enjoy this because your parents went through like terrible shit in order for you to have that, you know? And so then it doesn't give you like the full joy, like guilt kicks in, right? So that's like a narcissist trait right there, making the other person feel guilty for something that you had to endure, you know, someone else that has nothing to do with what you went through. Or you know, I think for her too, a lot of like, because she's, you know, a lot of the like, oh well, I remember when we were kids, like I don't remember being able to take naps. Like she wouldn't let us nap. Like she would see us sleeping, she'd be like, get up, what do you mean tan dormidas? You know, levántense, que you guys have to clean, you guys have to do this, so you guys can't take naps. So I remember never being able to like fall asleep in front of her, because I didn't want her to get mad, because I felt bad that I was sleeping and she was not, you know, so I felt bad. And she kind of like that trickle and like little things like that, you know. Again, you know, I love my mom to death, and I understand her now, you know, I understand why, you know, these tendencies came and have been protecting her for this long. So I understand it now, and I feel no resentment anymore, no nothing. It's just something that now I have to work on myself, because now I see these tendencies sometimes in myself, right? And yeah, I think a lot of things she was the first, and then from there, you know, as we grow older, things happen to us, like failed relationships or failed friendships, or you meet someone who their narcissist traits were so heightened, and then they hurt you, and then you feel like, okay, now you're even more of, you start growing, it just kind of attaches and becomes like this bigger monster, right? So it's not like for anyone saying like now that you're grown, and you could say like, oh well, this failed relationship caused me to be the way I am now, you know, like now I don't care about anybody else, or you know, because of a failed relationship, or now I'm gonna be this person and that person because so and so screwed me over. No, it's a failed relationship, or a moment in time, now that we're older, I feel it only triggers the traits. It triggered them. It kind of turned them on, but they've always been there, you know? And so, yeah, I can now say like, I have felt myself kind of not want to be in the vulnerable state, and not want to show like the weaker side of me. So then I put up a front that I'm someone else, you know? Or I've felt being criticized and belittled. I felt like that was like, to me, when I was scared in the moment feeling like, oh my God, I'm embarrassed. I don't want to be belittled or whatever. I felt that I had to be louder, or like, like be face to face. Like I guess in my relationship, things got heated, I needed to be the one that had to be like the loudest, the most angriest, the, stuff like that. And it was just all, and then be like, oh, well, it's your fault. You took me there. You made me do that. Like, then don't talk to me about this. If you don't want me to get mad, if you don't want to trigger me, then don't talk to me about this. If you don't want me to get to this point where I'm screaming and yelling, then don't do that to me. Like I've done that. And I've seek validation where I shouldn't have, where I shouldn't have, or I played a victim role many times, where I kind of victimized myself and made myself feel bad and wanted to make others feel bad for me, because I was lacking so many things that I didn't get. And I understand all that now. And I can sit here and say, I am a narcissist myself. And it does come out and things do trigger it. And I will not be throwing that word around so lightly anymore, because it's not, you can't just label someone that and then just kind of like turn the page and be like, well, that's what that person is. And I'm moving on,
Mm-hmm. And that's the biggest growth we could have, right? That we could recognize a trait in someone else, or a certain part in somebody else, and then use it to self-reflect.
Yeah.
Because I think that's where the biggest opportunity can happen for us, right? When we start asking questions and we go within. So it's just like, if we see it now, for you, it's like, I see it now in me. And because I could see it in me, I could understand others and I could forgive. That's how I felt too. Yeah. Like when I was able to own this aspect, this part of myself, that it wasn't easy to own, because I had to sit with myself and look at myself in the mirror and look at those parts that were so dark, like being controlling. I was, queen of control, to protect myself.
Yeah.
Everything I could control. Especially in my relationship, because in relationships is where your most fears come up, because you're with that person every single day. So your relationship is the perfect mirror for you, if you could use it in that way. Yeah. It really is the reason why we're in a relationship, to serve each other, to grow, to evolve, if we use it, not to destroy ourselves, right? So definitely, like when it came to me owning those parts of myself, it wasn't easy. There was a lot of tears. There was a lot of denial. There was a lot of self sabotage, even like a lot of negativity, like a lot of blame, and a lot of shame that I felt when I seen all these traits that my narcissist had, and knowing that the only way I could move forward was through loving that part of myself, accepting her, having compassion, because she was born out of a very vulnerable place. Yeah. She was born to protect me. She wasn't born just because she wanted to be a narcissist. Yeah. She felt a need to be born and to protect that inner child that I have, right? So it's just arriving to that place isn't easy. And even if you're hearing this information and you're having a difficult time, hearing this, or if this information is a different perspective for you that you hadn't looked at it, it's just have the most compassion for yourself as you're really asking these questions, because they're definitely not easy things to look at, to look in the mirror, right? I know, like we were chatting the other day, and we were talking about this, and we said, we talked about a mirror, right? And this is a perfect exercise. I use it myself. Before I even share anything, it's because I've used it myself, right? So it's like, if you look at yourself in the mirror, who do you see, right? Yourself. You don't see anybody else. So if you're going around in the world and you are in front of someone else, and that person is your mirror, what do you see? You could only see yourself. Every person that's in front of you is a mirror of you, good or bad. But it's just arriving to the place of of accepting that, right? Because there's parts in us that we can't, that we're probably not wanting to accept, and that's why we get the triggered the most through that part of the other person.
Yeah.
So if you could understand it from this point of view, that person's just serving you. They're serving you as a mirror so that you could look within and have acceptance to those parts that you are denying.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like that's where like a lot of the peace can start coming in when you can own that. And yeah, I just feel like
I know I think that's one of the biggest things that I've had to sit there and like when I'm thinking, okay, what about, and I'm right now currently obviously in my marriage is the one that I see him every day. I'm with him every day. So I am starting to understand more of the things that I see him I see my husband different in a different set of eyes, right? I see what took him to how he is and how he got there. And again, we said it earlier, we're not condoning anyone staying in an abusive relationship or anything like that, right? Because a narcissist can definitely be someone who's extremely controlling, like it's so heightened, these traits are so heightened that they become abusive mentally, physically, dangerous, emotionally, it's just bad, right? So that's not what we're saying to stay in that relationship, absolutely not. But I feel like for, in my case, I'm talking about things about like that annoy us about our partners, right? It's just annoying. And I'm seeing that things that annoy me about him, and then I'm like, how is this tying with me? And if I really search deep, and I've always said it, I always told people, if you're just honest with yourself, like absolutely honest with yourself, to the point where you're kind of almost ashamed of saying what you're actually gonna say because you're being honest with yourself, right? You are going to learn and accept so many things about other people because you're accepting that about yourself. But you have to be honest. You have to be able to say, yeah, you have to be able to say shit like, I probably exaggerated right there. And then, yeah, I know I've been lying about that. It's not even true what I'm telling other people that I'm actually doing. Or, do you know what I mean? To yourself. Like, or, things like, yeah, I don't even know why I'm acting like I can do it all, or I can be it all, or I'm everything, when I know I'm so afraid right now of doing what I'm about to do, or I don't even want to do that, or I would never even do that, But I'm telling the world that I am this, that, or I can. But there's so many people that are so far in denial that they can't even sit with themselves and tell themselves, yes, I fucked up. Like I am messing up. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done that. I'm doing that because I don't want them to see me cry. I'm doing that because I don't want them to see me hurt. I'm doing that because I don't want to show them who I really am. And so there's no growth. Like you won't see that. You won't be able to move on if you can't do that. And so being vulnerable with yourself, if you can't talk to anybody about it, then don't. I've been telling a lot of people, journal what you're thinking, journal what you're feeling. Every single word that comes up to your head, even if it's things that you never want to read again, then rip it up and burn it or something, but put it outside of you already. You're carrying it inside, put it on a piece of paper, go sit on a park bench or something and speak it out loud. Say it to God, say it to the universe, say it to whomever. Just take it out of your system already and write it down. I tell people, write it down. There's some things that I've written down on my journal that I've gone back to read, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I almost don't want to reread it. I don't want to reread it. I know that day, I know that time, and I know what I wrote on there, and I don't want to reread it. And sometimes I'm like reading it and I'm bringing myself to tears because I'm like, oh, I remember that moment in time when I wrote this, and I remember that pain. But I can tell you that it's been so helpful for me. So being honest, being able to say, yeah, I do have narcissist traits, and learn and understanding that trait and sitting with it so you can better understand others And I feel like it's just it's been so much easier for me. And it's easier to forgive. Like, not asking someone to come and say sorry to you, but just to forgive. You know what I mean? You forgive that pain that was done to you, because it's easy for us to go run around and saying, this was done to me, you know?
Because if you understand something, then forgiveness comes after.
Yeah.
Because you understand, right? Sometimes we were tackling the forgiveness part. But in reality, if you just took a step further and just went to understanding, that understanding in return will give you forgiveness.
Yeah.
So it's like understanding why I see these traits in others, right? Why I keep manifesting people like that in my life. Why I keep repeating these cycles over and over. So it's all about us asking ourselves those questions, right? That lead us to the answers that we're seeking. If we start asking questions outside of us and pinpointing people outside of us, you're looking in the wrong direction. It's like you gotta look within. Look at you first. Look at yourself in the mirror first and ask yourself those questions. And I know it's obviously not comfortable, right? But one thing I did want to share is that there is also darkness in chasing light. Very much. Because if you're only wanting to look at aspects of you that are light, that is narcissistic already.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Because you're only wanting to see one perspective and you're not willing to accept anything else, right? We're not just light.
Yeah.
We're also darkness. And owning both aspects of ourselves is important to heal and create wholeness and claim all of our power back.
Yeah.
So claiming those both parts, just how we love the good parts in us, learning to dance with the darkness as well. And I feel like, well, for me, it's been the most rewarding to learn to dance with that darkness. Yeah. I've danced with darkness all my life. Actually, that's one thing I noticed. Most of my journey from childhood to now has been nothing but darkness, a lot of it. But the difference now is I'm learning to dance with that darkness, to accept that darkness, to feel compassion, to feel love. Before, all I felt was anger, sadness, resentment, all those emotions that come. Now I'm learning to embrace that darkness as well. And this is the message we're trying to provide to our listeners, right? To embrace that aspect in you. If you could embrace that in you, if you can accept certain things, if you're someone that keeps manifesting nothing but narcissist partners, and you're asking yourself, why do I keep manifesting this type of partners? That you're one answer away from ending the cycle, right? And the answer is look at accepting those traits in you. If you can accept the traits in you that you see in all these people that you keep manifesting, you will break a cycle. It's not going to be easy. I know it's not. But it's going to be rewarding and life-changing, because you don't need to continue to keep repeating the same cycles over and over and over.
Yeah.
Right? And this is why I have so much passion sharing different perspectives about things, because certain perspectives keep you repeating cycles. Yeah. And if you could break them, then you could that's when you start having like life-changing events, and you could create a new reality for yourself.
Yes, big time. So if you're listening to this episode right now and you're like, oh my God, I am not a narcissist. So and so is a narcissist. Oh, that's a narcissist thing to say, sis. So so let's change that mentality, because that's exactly what we're trying to say here, you know. And you don't want these, you know, and catch these narcissist traits in you right away, you know, because you will lack authentic connections, because you're only going to be looking for superficial relationships that really focus on admiration of superficial things. So you won't have any actual connections, authentic connections. You're going to be in constant comparison, and remember, comparison is the real thief of joy. So, comparing yourself for the need of validation of others, always competing with others, you're never going to be, it doesn't allow you to be great, like practice gratitude or be grateful, or it doesn't allow you to appreciate what you have. And that will be a thief of joy. You're always going to be fearing showing weakness and exposing weakness. So you don't want to be vulnerable. Again, being vulnerable is a strength, and it's extremely vital for experiencing real joy, and self-acceptance, because you're accepting yourself in each and every part. So, and if you have narcissism traits and you're not embracing them, you're also going to be very insecure. Your self-esteem is not going to be where it needs to be. It leads you, you're going to have this weak self-image of yourself, and always seeking external validation from others instead of genuine self-worth. And I think one of the things also was isolation for me, right? I think emotional isolation. When you are in that moment where you don't want to talk about your feelings, you kind of isolate yourself, and other people will just be like, and then you start feeling alone and then angry because you're alone. So, but one of the things, Stevie, that we did talk about while we were talking about, remember when we said self-narcissism? Mm-hmm. And can we be narcissists to ourselves? Remember how we mentioned there is a possibility that we can be narcissists to ourselves, literally, where we are inflicting damage to ourselves because we have narcissist thoughts about how we probably feel like we don't deserve. You don't deserve that because of whatever X, Y, and Z. So those thoughts stay in your head, and then you're just self-inflicting this pain, and it just keeps us small.
Yeah, and it's all for that, just to keep validating childhood.
Yeah,
just to keep validating the familiar feelings that we felt when we were children. Right? It's all there just to keep validating. You did go through that. You did feel that, right? But that's why having awareness is so important. Having awareness of yourself is so crucial. If you could share 2 things before we close of how you began healing this part, what would they be? If somebody wanted to start healing or begin the process of that, what would be 2 things you could share on that?
For me, it was, again, start healing this was really journaling and being extremely, extremely raw and open, and everything I was feeling and the reasons why I did what I did. And if you really keep asking yourself, but why did you do that? But why? You get down to the actual, like they say, meat and potatoes of it all. You will find out. So for me, it was journaling and being extremely honest, ugly honest, and saying, it's okay. I understand you, and you're perfect. You're good. It was that helped me a lot. And then another thing that also helped me was sitting with my little moments where I would meditate. And you helped me with this too, and you've actually just showed me how to do this. But it was meditating and envisioning my younger self in certain points of my childhood, in moments where I felt like the trauma was the greatest, and sitting with her, envisioning my 7-year-old self, my 5-year-old self, my 10-year-old self, and envisioning her and just telling her embracing her and loving her and hugging her. And I envisioned all these different me's, my 5, my 7, my 10, my 15-year-old, my 18-year-old self. I envisioned them all together. When I envisioned them together, they're embracing each other, they're loving each other. It took me a lot to get there. Yeah. Super painful. Sometimes when I envision my 7-year-old self, my 5-year-old, it still brings me to tears when I think about her. Yeah. Because I know what pain I was feeling when I was, and so I sit there and I talk to her and I tell her, we're good, we're good. And so, those are the things that have helped me just embrace all of this, because I understand where it all comes from.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So powerful. So powerful that those 2 steps have helped you arrive, and that you're now able to share that with others, right? That you walk the path, that you've embraced your pain, embraced your story, and you keep doing it every single day. 2 things that I would like to share is, number 1, awareness of this part, and just having compassion as you see this part of yourself, because a lot of negative feelings can arise from it. That's one of the things I did, just learning to own it, to know that it's there, and then, have compassion. And number 2 is using reflection to help you with this process as well, challenging your beliefs. Why do you believe what you believe as well, right?
Yes.
And those are 2 things that I've used in this process. Of course, there's many more we could share, but these are 2 other ones that came up. And just remember that it's not about the narcissist, it's about you. It's about your own specific journey. The people that are playing the narcissist, they're like actors in your own movie. That's what they are. They're helping you evolve through the experience, but it is your responsibility to own your journey, to take action, so that you continue to evolve, so that you continue to find that inner peace that we all are seeking.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And having mantras is also really good.
Yeah.
Like, especially a safety one. That's a huge one, because as you're going through this, you could get triggered a lot. And having a safety container for when you get triggered, like coming back to the present moment and saying, I am safe in this moment.
Yep.
Just keep repeating that to your inner child. You're safe. I got you.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah.
Right? So using, mantras is a big one as well, because sometimes we can go on that path again, but the mantra can help you come back.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh man. Well, this was amazing, and I really do hope that that our listeners can take something from it. I really hope that it didn't trigger many of you, and if it did trigger you, I am challenging you to sit with that one and try to understand why. Why is it triggering to you to be called a narcissist? Why does that affect you so much? And after you're done with your tantrum, let's try and figure out why. Because let me tell you, I sat here and I was like, what? I am not a narcissist. Screw you. And there's no way. But, I am one.
Yeah. And to close, I would say we cannot see ourselves. We need a mirror to see ourselves. You are my mirror and I am yours. And this has been such a fun topic to talk about. Challenging, not easy, of course, because we have to be very vulnerable as we go through this. But we truly hope that you learned a thing or 2. And just to remind all of our listeners, we do have an Instagram page, and it is Unlocking Her Code Podcast. You can find me on my personal one, which is TV Side Coaching Center, and Lou at the Plug by Revive. And we have a YouTube that you can now subscribe. You could also follow us on the Apple Podcast. We're on Spotify. We're on all the platforms. We really, really appreciate if you share our podcast, give us feedback, subscribe. We welcome it all. We're just so thrilled on this project, and we're going to keep bringing these topics up. We're going to keep challenging the old and bringing in new information, new perspective. And that's why we also welcome feedback. So if there's something you guys would love us to talk about, we welcome that. You could DM us on Instagram, and we would be more than happy to do that.
Yep. We'll take that challenge. So thank you guys so much for listening today, and we can't wait for the next one.
Yes, this has been episode 4. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.